If you're over 60, I want you to imagine this. You wake up one morning feeling slightly off. Maybe your head feels heavy. Maybe one side of your face feels a little strange. Or you reach for your morning coffee and your hand doesn't quite respond the way it should. Most people assume stroke risk comes from obvious things: smoking, a sedentary lifestyle, a family history of heart disease. But what if I told you that some of the foods quietly raising your stroke risk are ones you eat every single week? Foods you may have been told are perfectly fine, even healthy. After years of researching nutrition, aging, and cardiovascular health, this is one of the topics I find most important for people over 60 to understand. Because after 60, your body is not the same body it was at 40. Your arteries have changed. Your kidneys filter differently. Your blood pressure responds more dramatically to what you eat. And foods that were genuinely harmless at a younger age can behave very differently inside an aging body. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through 4 specific foods that research has consistently linked to higher stroke risk in older adults, what they do inside your body, why the risk increases after 60, and most importantly, what small changes you can make to protect yourself without overhauling your entire life. My name is John Lee. I have spent years doing deep research into health and wellness, and this is Everyday Health Hacks, a channel dedicated to sharing the health information I genuinely believe is valuable for all of us, especially as we get older. If you want a quick visual summary of everything we covered today, I have put together a free printable infographic that lays it all out clearly. You can download it at ehacks.com. The link is right in the description below. Bookmark it, print it out, stick it on your fridge. It is yours completely free. Now, make sure you stay until the end, because the last food on this list is one that millions of seniors consume every single day without realizing its connection to stroke risk. Let's begin. Food number 1. And I want to start here because this is the one most people are not expecting, and the one where the science is most clear. Alcohol. Not processed snacks, not fast food. Alcohol, including wine, beer, and spirits, is one of the most well-documented dietary contributors to stroke risk, especially after 60. And yet, it is also one of the most socially normalized habits in this age group. Here is what is happening inside your body when you drink regularly. Your liver breaks down alcohol into a compound called acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is chemically aggressive. It directly attacks your DNA and interferes with your cell's ability to repair the damage. Over time, this contributes to arterial inflammation, and inflamed, damaged arteries are far more vulnerable to blockages and ruptures, both of which can cause stroke. But there are 2 more mechanisms that most people never hear about, and I think they deserve attention. First, alcohol steadily depletes your body of critical B vitamins, particularly folate and thiamine. Folate is essential for healthy cell function and for keeping a compound called homocysteine in check. When folate levels drop, homocysteine builds up in the blood. And elevated homocysteine is a recognized independent risk factor for stroke. It damages the inner lining of blood vessels and makes them more prone to clotting. Second, and this one genuinely surprised me when I first came across it, alcohol acts as a chemical solvent inside your tissues. It makes your cell membranes more permeable, which means any other harmful substances you are exposed to get absorbed more efficiently. If you regularly drink alongside eating processed or cured meats, for instance, the carcinogenic compounds in those meats are absorbed at a higher rate. That compounds the damage to your arteries over time. Now, why does this matter more after 60 specifically? Because as you age, your liver's ability to metabolize alcohol slows down. The same amount of alcohol you drank at 45 will stay in your system longer at 65. Your arteries are also naturally less elastic than they were in your younger years, meaning any inflammation from alcohol hits a system that is already more fragile and less able to recover. Research from large prospective studies has confirmed that even moderate alcohol consumption is associated with increased risk of atrial fibrillation, an irregular heart rhythm that is itself one of the leading causes of stroke in older adults. The heart quivers instead of pumping cleanly, and blood can pool and clot inside the chambers. That clot can then travel to the brain. This does not mean that one glass of wine at a family dinner will cause a stroke. But it does mean that if alcohol is a regular daily habit, it is worth having an honest conversation with yourself and your doctor about what it may be doing to your arteries and your heart rhythm over time. To reduce the risk, aim to limit alcohol to no more than a few occasions per week. Never drink on an empty stomach, as this accelerates absorption. Stay well hydrated on any day you drink, and if you take blood pressure medication or blood thinners, speak with your doctor about how alcohol specifically interacts with your prescription. Food number 2, this one is in the refrigerators and on the breakfast plates of millions of seniors every single morning. Processed meat, bacon, ham, sausages, hot dogs, salami, deli, turkey, and chicken slices, canned meat products. These foods carry a double, sometimes triple threat for stroke risk in older adults, and understanding why requires looking at 3 separate pathways. The first is sodium. Processed meats are among the most sodium-dense foods in the modern diet. A single serving of deli ham can contain over 700 milligrams of sodium. 2 breakfast sausages can carry more than 500 milligrams. The recommended daily limit for adults over 60 is 1,500 milligrams, and that is easy to exceed before lunchtime if processed meat is a regular part of your morning. Here is why sodium matters so much after 60. As your kidneys age, they become less efficient at filtering and excreting excess sodium. So sodium stays in your bloodstream longer, drawing water into the blood vessels, increasing blood volume, and pushing blood pressure up. Hypertension, chronically elevated blood pressure, is the single most significant controllable risk factor for stroke. And research has confirmed that blood pressure in older adults responds more dramatically to sodium intake than it does in younger people. A reduction in sodium that would lower systolic blood pressure by about 5 points in a younger adult can lower it by 8 points or more in someone over 55. The second pathway involves nitrites, the preservatives used to cure and extend the shelf life of processed meats. When nitrites reach your stomach, the acidic environment converts them into compounds called nitrosamines, specifically a substance called NDMA, which is classified as a probable human carcinogen. These compounds trigger inflammation in blood vessel walls. Inflamed vessel walls are thicker, less flexible, and more prone to the formation of plaques, fatty deposits that narrow the arteries and restrict blood flow. Narrowed arteries to the brain mean reduced oxygen delivery, and they are far more likely to produce the blockages that cause ischemic stroke. The third pathway is saturated fat. Processed meats are typically high in saturated fat, which raises LDL cholesterol levels. LDL cholesterol contributes to plaque buildup along artery walls, a process called atherosclerosis. As those plaques grow, blood flow to the brain becomes increasingly compromised. When a plaque ruptures, the body's clotting response can produce a clot large enough to block blood flow entirely. For older adults who already have some degree of arterial stiffness, which is a normal part of aging, these 3 pathways combined create a genuinely significant risk profile. To reduce the risk, treat processed meat as an occasional food, not a daily staple. When you do eat it, choose lower sodium versions and balance the meal with potassium-rich foods like banana, avocado, or sweet potato. Potassium actively helps counteract sodium's effect on blood pressure. Replace processed meat breakfasts with eggs, oats, or plain yogurt on most mornings. And read labels carefully. Anything with more than 600 milligrams of sodium per serving is worth reconsidering. If you're finding this helpful so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Everyday Health Hacks if you have not already. We publish regular research-backed content on nutrition, aging, and everyday wellness, and subscribing makes sure you never miss it. And if you have a parent, a sibling, or a friend over 60, consider sharing this with them. Something in this video may matter more to them than they realize. Also, do not forget, we have a free printable infographic summarizing all 4 foods from today's video, along with the safety tips for each one. Head to ahacks.com to download it. The link is in the description. It is a great one to print out and keep on hand, or pass along to someone you care about. Drop a comment below and let me know where are you watching from and which food on this list surprised you most. I read every single comment. Food number 3. And I want to spend real time here because this category is enormous, quietly ubiquitous, and deeply underestimated. Ultra-processed foods, packaged soups, instant noodles, frozen ready meals, crackers and salty snack foods, bottled sauces and condiments, store-bought breads and baked goods. These are not just high in sodium, though they are. They are engineered combinations of sodium, refined carbohydrates, industrial seed oils, and chemical additives that, eaten regularly, create the perfect internal environment for stroke risk to quietly rise. Let me break down the mechanisms. The sodium problem in this category is even more significant than in processed meat because these foods are consumed in larger volumes and more frequently. A single can of commercial chicken soup can contain over 800 milligrams of sodium. A serving of instant noodles can carry 1,500 milligrams, an entire day's recommended limit in one bowl. Crackers, dips, sauces, and frozen dinners each add to a cumulative daily total that most people never consciously track. For seniors whose kidneys are already working less efficiently, this chronic sodium overload keeps blood pressure elevated for hours after each meal, sometimes through the night, when blood pressure is supposed to naturally dip. When that overnight dip does not happen, what doctors call non-dipping hypertension, stroke risk increases significantly, particularly for hemorrhagic stroke, where a blood vessel in the brain bursts under sustained pressure. Beyond sodium, ultra-processed foods are almost universally low in dietary fiber, and that absence is itself a stroke risk. Fiber plays a critical role in regulating blood pressure, lowering LDL cholesterol, reducing systemic inflammation, and feeding the beneficial gut bacteria that support vascular health. Large-scale research has found that people with the highest fiber intake have meaningfully lower rates of stroke than those with the lowest. When ultra-processed foods displace fiber-rich whole foods from the diet, that protective effect disappears. There is also the refined carbohydrate issue. Ultra-processed foods are typically made with refined starches and added sugars that cause rapid blood sugar spikes after eating. In older adults with slower insulin response, a normal feature of metabolic aging, these spikes are larger and last longer. Chronic blood sugar elevation drives endothelial dysfunction, which means the inner lining of your blood vessels gradually loses its ability to regulate blood flow, respond to signals, and stay smooth. Rough, dysfunctional arterial walls are far more likely to accumulate plaque and trigger clots. A large-scale study found that people with the highest ultra-processed food consumption had an 8% higher overall risk of stroke, and that risk decreased by 9% for those who shifted toward unprocessed and minimally processed foods. That is not a trivial difference. Why does this hit harder after 60? Because the cumulative effects of decades of dietary choices are already reflected in your arteries. The margin for error is smaller, your blood pressure regulation is less agile, your kidneys are slower, and your body's inflammatory response, already more active in older adults, amplifies the damage from these foods more quickly than it would have at a younger age. To reduce the risk, make reading sodium content on food labels a consistent habit. Look for soups, sauces, and packaged foods with less than 400 milligrams of sodium per serving. Cook from whole ingredients whenever possible. Even simple meals like rice with vegetables and an egg are dramatically lower in sodium and additives than anything from a package. Replace salty snacks with whole food alternatives like unsalted nuts, fruit, or plain yogurt, and make fiber a daily priority. Beans, lentils, oats, vegetables, and berries all actively protect your vascular system. Food number 4. And this is the one that I think will surprise the most people watching today. Diet soda, and more broadly, any beverage sweetened with artificial sweeteners, diet lemonade, sugar-free energy drinks, artificially sweetened flavored water. For decades, diet soda has been positioned as the safe alternative, the smart swap for people watching their sugar and weight. And for many seniors, it replaced regular soda years ago as part of a genuinely well-intentioned effort to be healthier. Which makes this finding all the more striking. Landmark analysis from the Framingham Heart Study one of the longest-running and most respected cardiovascular research programs in the world, found that people who consumed at least one artificially sweetened drink per day were nearly 3 times as likely to suffer an ischemic stroke compared to people who drank less than one per week. Nearly 3 times. That is not a small statistical signal. That is a consistent replicated finding across one of the most rigorous datasets in cardiovascular medicine. That finding was reinforced by a separate large study from the Women's Health Initiative, which followed over 81,000 postmenopausal women and found that those with the highest consumption of artificially sweetened beverages had a significantly greater likelihood of stroke compared to those who rarely or never consumed them. Now, these are observational studies, meaning researchers tracked behavior and outcomes, but could not establish direct causation the way a controlled trial could. It is important to be honest about that. But the consistency of the signal across multiple large, independent cohorts is difficult to dismiss. What might explain it? Several mechanisms have been proposed. Artificial sweeteners appear to alter the composition of the gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract that play a surprisingly important role in regulating inflammation, blood pressure, and glucose metabolism. E-disrupted microbiome has been linked to increased systemic inflammation and impaired blood vessel function, both of which elevate stroke risk. There's also the insulin response question. Some research suggests that artificial sweeteners, despite containing no calories, still trigger an insulin response in some people simply through the sweet taste signal. If this happens regularly, it can contribute to insulin resistance over time, which is itself associated with arterial damage and elevated stroke risk. And for older adults specifically, there is one more concern. Diet sodas are often consumed instead of water, which means they can contribute to chronic mild dehydration. Dehydration thickens the blood, slows circulation, and makes clot formation more likely, particularly overnight when the body is already in a lower hydration state. Why does this matter more after 60? Because postmenopausal women and older men both experience natural shifts in vascular function, blood pressure regulation, and gut microbiome diversity. These shifts mean the body is already more susceptible to the kinds of disruptions that artificially sweetened drinks appear to cause. A younger gut microbiome has more resilience, an aging one has less buffer. To reduce the risk, begin replacing diet soda with sparkling water, plain water with a slice of lemon or cucumber, or unsweetened herbal tea. If the habit is deeply ingrained, reduce gradually rather than cutting out entirely. Even dropping from 1 can per day to 3 per week is meaningful progress. Prioritize proper hydration throughout the day, and be particularly mindful of drinking water in the hours before bed to keep blood flowing smoothly through the night. After hearing about these 4 foods, I want to take a moment to offer some perspective, because the goal of this video is never to frighten you. It is to give you the kind of clear, honest information that lets you make genuinely informed choices. You are not powerless against stroke risk, not even close. The research on all 4 of these foods, alcohol, processed meat, ultra-processed salty foods, and artificially sweetened drinks, points to the same underlying truth. After 60, your cardiovascular system is more sensitive to what you eat and drink than it was in earlier decades. Your arteries are less elastic. Your kidneys are more easily overwhelmed by sodium. Your blood pressure responds more dramatically to dietary inputs. And your body's ability to buffer and recover from chronic inflammation is more limited. But that sensitivity works in your favor too. The same studies that show higher risk from these foods also consistently show that removing or reducing them and replacing them with whole, fiber-rich, minimally processed foods produces real, measurable improvements in blood pressure, arterial health, and stroke risk. Research has shown that even modest sodium reduction lowers blood pressure more in older adults than in younger ones. The benefit of dietary change is not wasted on an aging body, it is amplified by it. Small, consistent shifts are what build the protection that lasts, choosing water over diet soda most of the time. Reading the sodium content on one more label per grocery trip. Swapping a processed meat breakfast for eggs and oats a few mornings a week. Cooking one more meal from whole ingredients instead of a package. None of these changes requires perfection. All of them add up. Aging is not about decline. It is about adaptation, learning what your body needs now in this season of life, and giving it that with consistency and care. What you put on your plate today becomes the circulation, the clarity, and the independence you carry with you tomorrow. I would love to hear from you now. Which of these 4 foods surprised you the most? And is there one change you're going to make this week based on what you learned today? Drop it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another senior watching today needs to hear. If this video was helpful, please like it, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more research-backed health content designed specifically for life after 60. Take care of yourself. I will see you in the next one.